Okay, well, hello, IFA friends. I'm Mike Lehman, and welcome to today's Franchisee Town Hall program. This is the first of our Franchisee Town Hall programs offered in partnership with Franchise Update Media. And our topic today, as you see, is government impact on your bottom line. And we have two dynamite special guests on today's Town Hall. With us today is our friend John Ring, who is a partner at IFA member law firm Morgan Lewis, and he's the former chairman of the National Labor Relations Board. And you'll hear more about the NLRB from John in just a minute. But first, you'll hear from the Honorable Rodney Davis, our other friend. Rodney is a former member of Congress from Illinois and the original chair of the Congressional Franchise Caucus, and Rodney, in fact, hails from a franchising family himself.
It's great to be with you and Chairman Ring. It's great to see you. Always great to join a panel with you on. Look, I'm excited to be part of the Franchise Association, Mike. As you mentioned, I grew up in a franchise family, and my dad, my mom, were McDonald's operators. My dad still is. My brother is. So because of franchising, my family achieved the American dream, and I was able to achieve the American dream and serve in the United States House for 10 years. My dad walked into a McDonald's restaurant in 1959, the first one that was built in Des Moines, Iowa, and he never left. He decided that one day he wanted to own his own franchise. So he worked his way up, just like many franchise owners in all across the franchising sector have done. They worked their way up. He worked his way up as a grill person, a counter person. He worked his way up as manager, crew chief, etc. Then was a regional supervisor. And in 1977, my dad's dream came true, and he was offered a franchise, which moved us from Des Moines, Iowa, to my hometown where I live and where I represented Congress for 10 years, and that's Taylorville, Illinois. I grew up around franchising. I saw what the franchise model did for my family. It allowed us, as I said, to achieve the American dream. Franchising works. It gives the independence to a person like my dad, someone like my brother, to partner with a company like McDonald's or many other franchises and still own their own business, but operate it in a way that's a mutually agreed upon agreement to provide whatever is necessary to their customers. It works all throughout small town America where I live. It works in our cities. It works everywhere. And I'm a prime example of making that happen. And my dad told me, though, growing up, Mike, he said, government matters and policies matter to the way he runs his franchise in Taylorville, Illinois. So I better pay attention, which might have been an inspiration for me to enjoy government a little bit and then get into government for the last 26 years of my life. I would urge everyone to ensure that they don't let their elected officials at all levels of government not understand that what a franchisee does in that elected official's community is much different than the perception that many elected officials have about companies like a McDonald's or like other franchises. You know, there's a lot of talk that somehow McDonald's is telling these franchises what to do in somewhat of a joint employer situation. That was the furthest thing from the truth. When I grew up with my family in our McDonald's franchises, we knew our family operated those franchises, but there was an agreed upon set of rules to be able to use that franchise name. The best thing I would do if I was a franchisee in any business, I would invite my elected officials to come understand my business, understand how many employees I have that are their constituents, understand what my company does in their district and how it interacts within our local communities. We all know that the local franchisees, they're the ones sponsoring little leagues. They're the ones making sure the chambers of commerce still operate in our smaller communities. They're the ones that are helping community events and charity events on a regular basis. You know, understanding as an elected official the impact that every single business, especially our franchisees operations, understanding the impact they had in my district was done on a let me see it basis. I would travel throughout my district and visit franchises, in a wide variety of different parts of our economy. And I even got a chance to go visit some franchises other than my parents' McDonald's franchises, and put my old McDonald's skills back to work in going around to meet new people in our communities. And understand too, the employees want to meet elected officials, and it's a great it's a great relationship building experience for your employees that are making that franchise operate every day. And one of the reasons why I got into government and decided to become an elected official is because I saw government get engaged in too many aspects of our lives, be it through our tax code, be it through our regulatory environment, be it through local ordinances and zoning issues. In the end, America has become the greatest nation in the history of the world because of our entrepreneurial spirit. I think the joint employer standard that's trying to be implemented by many in Washington and throughout our country at the state level would be devastating to the experience I had growing up in a franchising family. The joint employer standard that is trying to be that is being debated right now, I think would stop that individuality. It would take away the entrepreneurial spirit of what a franchisee wants to do to be able to run their own business under the guise and the agreement of working with a franchise. I don't believe that many small towns like the one I live in and the same one that I grew up in would be able to survive trying to figure out how to go through the corporate bureaucracy to find out if you can make a donation to a local charity that is supported now by your owner operators, by your franchisees. And in the end, I don't think it's good for America to have a system of small business operations that would be run by one giant corporation if the joint employer standard was implemented as intended.
That's right. People go into franchising to be independent, to run their own business, not to share responsibility with a partner. So, of course, we know the National Labor Relations Board is likely this summer to come out with a new negative, in our view, joint employer standard that could be really disruptive to the franchise model. And we've seen this movie before. From the 2015 to 2017 period in this country, we had a joint employer standard that was wide open and that makes every franchise system effectively a sitting duck to be named a joint employer by overzealous regulators. And you can go to a website called jointemployerfacts.com, anyone can, and you can see the economic harm on franchises during that 2015-2017 period. A huge increase in litigation and a huge increase in operational costs for both brands and franchisees, and all for what gain? It's very unclear. So it continues to be a big concern. And so let's now welcome in John Ring. And John, welcome, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
John, you are steeped in labor law, the topic of the previous question, and a lot of what franchise businesses are facing right now. Please tell us a little bit about your background and your government service.
Sure. So I recently completed a 5-year term on the National Labor Relations Board, and I served for roughly 3 years as chairman of the board, the first 3 years. It was my first time in government. Prior to serving on the National Labor Relations Board, I spent my entire career as a labor lawyer representing management interests in the private sector at the Morgan Lewis law firm. I will say what I found in government was a bit shocking. I always heard rumors of what it was like in government, but generally the folks I encountered in government had absolutely no idea what running a business was about. In fact, most of them had never been in the private sector, Rodney excluded, I guess. And really, what was really surprising to me was that despite having no experience, most of the government employees I encountered had no doubt about how to run your business better than you do, and no qualms about imposing their judgment on your business judgment. And at least that's, you know, what I found, at least in terms of the labor lawyers with the NLRB. My term ended in December, and I'm back in private practice. I like to say I'm back to solving problems instead of creating problems in government. I will just add, my story is not as great as Rodney's, but I did start and frankly was able to go to college because of my time working at McDonald's. I worked there in high school, and I will say I echo the points about the customer service and that we made. As a hiring partner at my law firm, I always look for somebody who had worked in a franchise, a fast food, or other industry, because it really is all about customer service, and it translates into almost everything you do later in life. So the franchise model and the opportunities that it provides are just really amazing. In a normal world, the NLRB would probably play a pretty minimal role for most businesses. The agency is responsible for unionization issues in the country. That is when employees in a particular workplace decide they need or want a union, the NLRB facilitates and actually runs, an election to see if a majority of the employees want to be represented by you. If those employees decide and that they want a union and they vote a union in, then the agency make sure that the employer and the union engage in what is known as collective bargaining. And that's kind of the limited role that the agency, the NLRB really should have. But, as I said, that's in the normal world. Today, the NLRB, and it seems like so many other government agencies in Washington particularly, are engaged in really extreme overreaches to exert power and control over businesses and really in ways I don't think we've ever seen. For example, just in the NLRB, recently the board issued decisions that take away so many rights from employers, including restricting employers' rights to have uniform policies or dress codes, mandating what employers, including union and non-union employers, can put in their employment documents. These are just a few examples. And the NLRB also is looking for ways to make it easier for unions to organize businesses. Under the recent so-called micro-unit decision, the board says that small portions of an employer's workplace, like your maintenance employees, just subsets of your workplace or a particular shift of employees, can be organized without organizing the rest of the workplace. So of course it gives the union nose under the tent and the ability to organize from within. So the NLRB really is imposing itself right now on into business operations, limiting the ability to the way businesses can run their operations, and I think it really should be a concern to most businesses. I don't think you can overstate the importance of the joint employer standard for the franchise business model. When I was chairman of the NLRB, and frankly, in recognition of the value and importance of the franchise model in this country, we issued a joint employer rule, and that was in 2020, that really tracked the traditional standard for determining the joint employer status. It's a standard that had been around for decades prior to the 2015 Obama era standard that went into effect. That was really so detrimental. Our test, of course, looked at actual control and the degree of that control that each employer had over the employees, and it did provide that independence that most franchisees enjoy. We did it by rule because we thought that was the right way to give the most guidance and predictability and stability. I said, we overturned a prior rule that really had been so distorting of that independence that we looked to. The NLRB right now is engaged in rulemaking to replace our 2020 rule. That's the one that you talked about that's supposed to come out in August. the rule that the NLRB is currently considering and the proposed rule that they've put out I think will literally destroy the joint employer distinction. I think the way it's drafted, everyone will be a joint employer. And frankly, I think that would really dismantle the franchise model. And really, I think it's really, as was said before, it's really an effort to do so that unions can organize and put pressure on one unified entity. So I really do fear a great destabilization and of the possibility of undermining the franchise model as we know it, which of course I think is the goal of the NLRB as being prompted by the organized labor movement. The NLRB looking to expand its power and control over businesses, and partnering with the FTC and frankly with a number of other agencies to look for a way to impose itself in greater ways. When we were at the board, we saw our role as kind of staying within our lane of unionization and collective bargaining. And this board sees its role as the protector of all unionization everywhere, and so has really kind of moved into partnerships with other agencies in order to expand its power and control. The current government programs that they put together, they talk about it in terms of a whole of government theory, which is this idea that we bring all the government together to bring to bear and then be able to impose the greatest regulations and restrictions on your various government and on your businesses. And it's often cast in kind of non-threatening terms like, information sharing or joint cooperation. But really, make no mistake about it, this is really government agencies joining forces, in this case, the NLRB and the FTC, to, be able to impose these employment overreaches, and do it through the FTC employment mechanisms. I think the FTC, as the FTC looks at the franchising model and scrutinizes that, the NLRB is going to be behind the scenes looking to impose its views on union organizing, expand employee rights, and really limit employer ability to freely run their businesses, all under the guise of fairness and competition, or at least that's what I think is the stated goal that they'll use. When the joint employer rule comes out, and the NLRB has targeted August, you should expect that the general counsel of the board, who's the prosecutor, and the regions of the board that are under her control, will immediately start issuing charges. There will be charges against franchisees, that we're talking about, alleging joint employer immediately. So I think the litigation will start, really immediately.
Thanks, Rodney. And thanks, John, both for your perspectives on these. We're going to now, as we wind down this afternoon, we're going to give everyone a chance to do just what Rodney described, and that's engage. There's a few things that franchise owners who want to defend their businesses and franchise the entire franchise model can do as we face a new joint employer standard and other regulatory impacts. And first, we're going to show you some QR codes on the next couple slides. First, you see the first QR code on your screen pertains to the Federal Trade Commission, because the FTC, as we've talked about here in Washington, is scrutinizing franchising more these days. And they have recently put out a request for information on franchise business practices. And this request for information is currently available for franchise people to provide public comments on. And we are encouraging every franchise owner to share how important the franchise model has been to your livelihood through this RFI. So what you can do is simply get your phone and click on this QR code on your screen with your camera function. And this QR code will take you right to the IFA toolkit for the FTC that you see pictured on the left part of your screen. You can use that toolkit to submit comments directly to the FTC. And all you have to do is talk about your business, talk about how valuable the franchise model has been in your life, as Rodney explained so eloquently about his background, and encourage these Washington regulators at the Federal Trade Commission to please do no harm to the franchise relationship. It's a very important message to deliver. So please click on this QR code. Let's drive up the numbers of franchise comments that are in favor of this business model. Then we have another QR code for everyone to scan, and this is to join our Franchise Action Network. Rodney and John talked about the importance of being engaged. That's why IFA exists, is to facilitate connections between you at home and your lawmakers in Washington and state capitals around the country. So you can quickly join the Franchise Action Network, get our biweekly newsletter, hear about meetings and other bills moving in your local area that are going to affect your bottom line. That's what this program is all about. You click on this QR code with your camera function. You're going to join in just a couple of clicks our grassroots army of over 100,000 franchise business people nationwide. I know you're busy. But as Rodney and John have explained, it is just incumbent on franchise people to stay current, stay engaged on these policy issues today. And finally, our next franchisee town hall, we will meet again next week, May 24th, again at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Pacific, and we will discuss the Federal Trade Commission in more depth, and specifically this request for information. So this final QR code on your screen, you can scan that with your phone and quickly register for next week's program. And from there, we will continue this town hall series. If you enjoyed it today with John and Rodney, we will continue beyond next week into the summer. After next Wednesday, our next program will be 3 weeks later on June 14th, and then bi-weekly on Wednesdays throughout the summer. So, gang, that's all we have for today. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Our special thanks to John Ring, to Rodney Davis for joining us today. Our thanks to all of you who joined and watched. And we hope to see you next Wednesday on the next IFA Franchisee Town Hall. Thanks, everybody, for being here.